All right, so hey everybody, Shane here, DailyAstrocat.com, and today, this is the Pisces season preview. Now, and this is going to be very good because what I'm doing here is I've got myself a little bit of time, a little bit of what we're doing, right? So look, Pisces season, it's better late than never, don't you think? It's in full swing. Today we're going to explore the origins of this. It's the last sign of the Zodiac, right? It's very, very nice. It's the last sign of the Zodiac. Today, Pisces is a complicated sign and one that is often misunderstood and oversimplified, in my opinion. I'll break down the underlying astrology behind the ebbs and flows of this astrological energy. Mercury is also going to be retrograde, so and Mercury is going to be in Pisces for what's going to seem like forever. So we're going to have to get used to that energy as well. This Pisces season is also an eclipse season, so we're right in the middle of it. We just had that eclipse in Aquarius, and we got one coming up in Virgo very soon, and within a week or so. So we want to know. Mercury retrograde is on Thursday, so it started today at 1:46 in the morning, and basically that's the day I'm recording this, and it's going to remain retrograde until March 20th. So this is a richly creative period. That's that Pisces energy. That's what it's bringing to us. It's also Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So we're going back. We're going to get a chance to review and revise some of this stuff. Now, this is a period of trial and error. It really is. It's a great chance for you when you're revising stuff. Just, trial and error. Just give something a shot. If something's not working out, go back and redo it. Revise, revisit. Those are all the words are great for retrogrades, particularly Mercury retrograde, because it is so mental. Mercury's retrograde will have us revisiting and revising these and aligning them with some of the grander cycles as well. Say like Chinese New Year or the New Year of this year, or perhaps even, cycles within cycles. This is what I love talking about. Lunations for the period are the Virgo full moon and the lunar eclipse on March 3rd. Okay, and the new moon in Pisces on the 18th. Remember that Aquarius, it's kind of bridging the two seasons as well, right? That eclipse that was in Aquarius with that new moon in Aquarius, it bridged the two seasons. So that was very interesting as well. So let's get started. Now, I've been telling you to go ahead and use technology. And the reason I've been telling you to use technology is because we got to get used to it, and we got to get used to doing this stuff. This slide happens to be an AI slide, and it's interesting. It doesn't look too bad. There's nothing there. However, all of the inputs that I put into it were from my own as well as from internet sources. So basically, I just had... I asked about the origins of Pisces from things that I've written previously and from things that are existing on the internet, right? So look, Pisces originated early human civilizations in the East. Now, the earliest record of two fish is from ancient Egypt, right around 2300 BC. That's interesting. There's a Syrian myth that links the two fishes to the goddess Artagatis. Okay? The fish symbolizes divine protection and the cycle of rebirth, because one's going up, one's going down when we see them, right? That's why there's an ankh in the middle of that, I guess. So that's kind of cool. There's a myth it's part of it, and the Greek part of the myth simulates the Egyptian and the Syrian side. And there's this monster called Typhon. And he's the terrifying father of all monsters, and he attacks the gods. Now, Aphrodite and Eros transform into fish to escape the great threat. And how did they know how to do that? Well, Pan warned them and then transformed into a protective goat fish. Oh, does that sound like Capricorn? Yes, it does. So all of these signs, so Eros and Aphrodite turn into the two fish. That becomes a sign of Pisces. And the two fish are connected by a cord. It became the constellation Pisces. All right, but we know it already existed from the Egyptians 2,300 years, at 2,300 BC. Alrisha is the cord. Now, that's the name for Alpha Pisceum. That's the star that forms the cord. It means the well rope, or the cord that binds. Now, Alrisha represents the anchor connecting the Pisces dual fish. That's an important part. It prevents the spirit and the material from drifting apart. So it's linking the spirit world and the material world. How much of Pisces archetypes, how much of that is tied up into that one statement? And how much of that is tied up into the astrology you hear all the time, right? That spirit as above, so below, the material linking the two. Sometimes you can get lost in one or the other, right? Well, with that little bit of that cord between it, now we realize what's actually tethering us to our reality, tethering us to joining that duality that exists inside of us, where it's part divine, part material, right? Pisces is the 12th and final sign of the Zodiac, Alpha and Omega, right? It's the cosmic wheel. It's the beginning and the end. Aries is the beginning, but Pisces is right where it happens. It's the end. It's the beginning, right at that cusp, and right at the cusp of Aries. Kind of like why they get along a little bit, right? Because they understand that energy, that transfers of energy, that Sabian symbol of the woman emerging from the water in 0 degrees Aries with a sea creature on her leg. Oh, that is very, very telling. And that is very much the energy that we're into right now, particularly with Neptune and Saturn in those points. Now, this acts as a spiritual vessel for universal emotions. So we get the emotions going, right? Boundaries dissolve into collective unconsciousness, and then they're given new form as it enters into the new year. That's where that woman comes out of the water with that creature on her leg. That's that new form that it's given. Saturn and Neptune both have a new form that they're giving us creatively, and that is very, very important. Now, let's get into this. Here's a table of some of the ancient mystical roots and some of the archetypes and how it kind of corresponds, right? That the chord is the balancing the inner swirls and eddies of dreams with the practical demands of reality. That's right. That's that duality. That's what keeps us rooted, especially Pisces natives. This season does impart a little bit of that upon all of us, and it gives it some weight to some of our actions, some of our thoughts, some of what we do, because that's the way the seasons tend to work. That sun does have an effect. And now your natal sun may be a very different sign. You may not be a Pisces, but you get a little bit of this. You get to take a little bit of this. And then it's filtered through your experiences and also your sun sign. And it plays out in a different way. And if you know your ascendant, you can actually figure out where Pisces is on your chart, and then you know where these energies are also applying to your aspect of your lives, which is the house system. So the flight from Typhon, that running away from the monster, is intuitive resourcefulness. Okay, it gives us our escapism. It gives us our imagination and creativity to be able to just go, and it's a way that you can survive and heal. That's particularly profound in the Pisces character, that escapism, that ability to disassociate and just go, boom, oh, nope, I'm out, and then come back in a new way because you've survived what you had to do. You've healed from it, and now you're ready to approach it from a new and more empathetic standpoint. And speaking of that, 12th sign legacy, it's carrying the burdens of the entire zodiac. Think about that, right? It's the last sign. It's the culmination of everything that the seasons have gone through. There's a universal empathy that's here. It's a profound capacity that allows for the healing of others' wounds. Chiron-like, right? Very Chiron. Now, Jupiter's rulership. Okay, Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. Now, a lot of times people are like, oh, Neptune's a planet of illusions and delusions. Well, Jupiter's still there, just like Mars is in Scorpio, just like Saturn is in Aquarius. That's a fact. Now, it's expansive compassion. Now, the way I like to describe Jupiter's influence in Pisces is that Jupiter in Sagittarius is outward expansion. It's where we go out. In Pisces, it's an inward expansion. It's where we tend to go. So, and it's a deep spiritual kingdom of God is within. That's right. It's a drive towards spiritual growth and universal love without discrimination. So let's get into some charts, shall we? So this is the actual day that the sun enters Pisces. So think about it. So you can see the 000 up there on the chart. So we got 000 here on the chart. Now, if we think about it, we also have this, there's Neptune, there's Saturn. They are both at 0 degrees and 0 degrees of Aries. That's what I was telling you about, that 0 degrees. We have that's that point where the Pisces ends, but the sun is at the beginning. So the sun's going to go through all of this and go through that whole transformation where we just take everything that we've learned over the last year and then move it forward. And Mercury is going to really put an exclamation point on all of this. Now, you can see right here, there's something lurking. Something wicked this way comes, and that is Black Moon Lilith. And as she begins to move and enter into Sagittarius, right, we're going to start seeing some aspects with the planets that are in Aries. And that is going to change the desire mechanic. That's going to change whether, we're allowing ourselves to be tethered. But that is after the fact. That is after we go through this whole internal process of reconciling the whole last year. And then we move forward, but we move forward with fire. And it's going to be a huge fire. It's going to be very interesting. You can also see Jupiter out here in the wings. And Jupiter is actually forming a number of trines with the planets that are in Pisces. So this is where the sun is also going to get some of that. And then as Mercury starts backtracking in retrograde, you'll see Mercury come conjunct with the North Node, conjunct with Venus, conjunct with clearly the moon, because the moon just goes whipping around. It'll be conjunct with the moon a couple times, but also the sun and Mars. So we're going to be able to revisit some of these things. And then when Mercury goes direct, it will actually have aspects with all of those planets again. It will have another aspect with Jupiter too. Once, twice, thrice, okay? We go back on this and we go back to the first time, and that's going to give us some kind of idea of where this energy is heading and what it is revising and what it is that we need to be doing moving forward. Let's take a look at the second chart. Now this chart is the perfected Venus-Jupiter trine. I've been talking about that a lot. This occurred on the 22nd. Today is the 26th. It's still going to be in effect for another week to 10 days, so it's very, very good to talk about this. What we really want to talk about here is that this strengthens our commitment to each other and where we live. That's right, Jupiter in Cancer. Now, Jupiter is still retrograde, so we're still thinking about the things that we need to do. We still are thinking about, it's not really an active moving forward energy or an expansive energy. It's more like a gathering energy. What can we revise? What can we redo? What are we doing to better our situation? And sometimes that's 3D, and sometimes that's 5D, and sometimes that's actual physical in the house, this stuff behind me, right? Yeah, exactly. Now, there's an impressive grouping of planets, and it's all right here. You can see it. It's still all very heavily weighted between that Aquarius and, say, Aries side of the zodiac. The only two planets we have outlying that are Uranus over here in Taurus, and we have Jupiter here in Cancer. So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Now, we will be in the arms of Venus and Jupiter for the next week. That's a nice way to think of it, isn't it? In the arms, nurtured, cuddled, being held. Some of the biggest names in astrology are calling this at the inflection point of the entire year. All right, and I'd like to think that that all of you are a little bit more enlightened and are better off as human beings being here and being open to my interpretations of what this is. And I'd hate to tell the others, but things aren't really going to begin changing until the Leo season. That's just for me, right? There's something there. There's something that's telling me that, it's a transition and it's important. But think about it. Neptune in Aries is a 14-year cycle. Just because we arrive at one point, there are no lines in the sky. Just like I always say, I use whole sign houses because it's kind of crazy to try to think a Placidus chart that can engulf an entire sign or something like that is a better representation of what's going on rather than just, going with whole signs and saying, look, let's just plot it out here and see where it goes. It tends to distort. I think that the whole sign charts tend to clarify a little bit more because it's kind of like a universal thing that's applied, right? It's not the way we want to see it. There's no spin in a whole sign chart. The only spin is where that ascendant falls, and then just dividing up our houses. Equal sign can do the same thing, right? Just divide up the houses equally so that it has equal representation all the way around it. That Placidus, the further north you go, the more ludicrous those charts begin to look. And honestly, that's something that's just, there's no lines. Anyway, look, unless something drastic happens, okay, seriously, unless something drastic happens, it's not going to change. Leo season? Yeah, I think you'll see some changes. I think you'll see some changes in art and changes of expression. We've already seen some, okay, and I got a great example of that later on. But, our means will begin to shift, and the heavier we lean into our and what's going to happen is we're going to have to lean heavier into our creativity and side hustles. We have to be able to do that because we want to make sure that once we have more means, that we are able to positively impact our lives and the lives of others. Let's talk about the 26th, Mercury Retrograde. Don't ask me how that got out of sequence, but it did. All right, so Mercury Retrograde. What are we doing? Well, this boilerplate statement, right? No new tech, no new purchases, no contracts, no new contracts, right? Be very careful with your communications. And, we want to make sure that we just are looking out for the best that we can. Now, Mercury in Pisces is a totally different animal, though. We've got this intuitive thing going on where the logic doesn't quite make sense. And so it's nonlinear, right? It's something, it's not A, B, C. It might be D, A, B, C. Something like that. It doesn't have to have that number. It's just like shuffling a tarot deck or something. The cards fall where they fall. Now, look, Mercury is retrograde. Don't be afraid of it. There's ways to work with it. It's not to be feared. This is a time that we need to exercise patience, and we have a lot of that in both Capricorn, and we have a lot of that in Pisces. Pisces is empathetic. It can get, just don't get tied up too much in the feels of it. We want to make sure that we're doing away with the feels because of that eclipse that was in Aquarius was teaching us that we've got to be a little bit more aloof and a little bit more detached emotionally for the next 6 months. And then leading into the next, 18 months, actually, because that's where that axis will be. So it's more about innovation. It's more about ideas and helping society at large and in general than it is to actually be fussing and stressing and worrying about how this is going to make things feel and everything like that. We just have to move forward with our expressions and ideas in a way that's going to change and transform how art and creativity is expressed. That is the Neptune in Aries part of it. Now, it's time to make adjustments not only to our creative pursuits, but also to our 3D pursuits. Relationships should really stay on the living side. That's right, because since we have Venus in Pisces, that's right, we want to just make sure that we're doing the things we're supposed to be doing. Now, let's talk about this, okay? Because we've got something else going on here, too. What's this, the 27th? 27th is, what do we got here? We got Mars, and Mars is now, it's kind of just like, is just pushing the other planets, right? There is a square with Uranus, between Uranus and Mars here. What's going on there? Well, markets, up, down, volatility, right? Hopefully, there's nothing military going on. There's nothing martial going on because that's a Mars thing, right? We want to make sure that we're just being consistent. Now, as far as investing goes, we do funds and 401ks. Our 401ks are tied to that. We're not really into that game of the up and down. If you are, then power to you. I really appreciate that. This is an investment advice. This is just saying that, hey, there's volatility that's there. And volatility will still continue up until we start to see Mars passing a little bit into that Pisces season where it can actually become a sextile and it can become helpful. That's where it's going to be done, right? Now, it's not going to change overnight, and this is for sure. This report actually uses AI to make this initial presentation because we're using that technology. We're using the things that are available to us to try to make sure that we're doing things and they're making sense to us. It's going to help us make more money in the long run because if we free up our time by utilizing some technology such as AI and learning how to use it the right way, we can actually make ourselves more productive. And with productivity, hopefully the money that we receive for the compensation we receive for that product, or for that higher productivity, is matched. Now, does it always work that way? No, it doesn't. Okay, I'm just saying. In an ideal world, that would be nice. Now, if innovation is that good, why can't we just immediately exploit that? Well, that's because Mercury in Pisces muddies the water. We won't really know just how good the results are, but we're going to get a feeling for it, right? And we're getting that feeling, and we're working through it. We have to do the work because Saturn is in that first degree of Aries. So that is where the work has to be done in order to get the reward. Mars enters Pisces. Now everything will begin making sense in the best possible way. Once we get Mars away from that innovative and the out there kind of like abstract Aquarian mindset of, the greater good, now we're going to go inside. And it's still abstract, but it's a different kind of abstraction. This is an abstraction that comes from within. And this is where we have to understand where it is that we're heading and where we're going. But now, everything will begin making a little sense in the best way possible. Even with Mercury retrograde, sure, actions are going to seem a little bit sluggish, but they align with our intentions much, much better. It's up to us to continue using technology, but it's just a bit more difficult and it takes more time. This is time well spent. This will give you a hard edge, a hard edge, as far as what it is that we're doing. And, over time, once we get through the Mercury retrograde, you're going to have that technological background there behind you to be able to move forward confidently into doing some of the things we need to be doing. This is time well spent. Now, actions, they're now more intuitive with Mars entering. When Mars enters Pisces, it's more intuitive, less disruptive, and ultimately they'll come from a kinder place. That's always nice, right? Unfortunately, bad actors and bad intention, they'll increase because they're going to think people are cheap suckers. They're going to be, they're easily led. Find your place in all of this. We're feeling Venus and Jupiter trine here still, okay? Be comforted. Take that comfort to heart, all right? We will protect ourselves and mount a vigorous defense. That's right, because Jupiter in Cancer, defensive. Expansive, expanding defenses. Now, our new single mission requires us to first protect ourselves and then come to the aid of others. Very important point. Twice. This is the second time Mercury is conjunct Venus. The first time was after an emotionally charged week of the new moon in Capricorn. As frantic as that was, post-holiday and pre-Aquarius season, the Mercury-Venus conjunction on 129 stated that our words would sound persuasive and enticing, yet it was against a backdrop of feeling emotionally drained by the previous week. This rather presaged a seasonal slowdown that has persisted for the entire month, almost the entire month of February, okay? It stood in sharp contrast to what the actual end of that week felt like. Yeah, we were able to do things, right? We came out of it, boom, got it done. And all of a sudden, it's just like, pull back. Weather got bad. Everything was crazy, right? Now, can we catch the wind again? That's the operative word, right? The previous conjunction was in Aquarius, and that's a bit more extroverted than this one here, right? This inward focus matches this lesson in communicating more about maintaining a certain vibrational level that matches our words with the frequency of not just those vibrations, but also our intentions. Before we were able to compartmentalize these words in the active components, yeah, we were able to keep them separate. Now they kind of blur into one, right? We had two paths before. Now it's almost like we were living two lives. Previously, it felt like we were living two lives. And the moon is now in Cancer. And Jupiter, being direct, it's going to go direct in a couple of days. It's going to dwarf that feeling. It's going to make that feeling seem more inclusive and more expansive. And now it feels like we're on one track. It's a joining of both our material and our spiritual, of what we want to do, our creative and our 3D, 5D, 3D, just joining all that stuff together. Now, that was just Ziggy hitting the floor back there. There are no longer multiple tracks. You don't have time for that, really, honestly. What we have is we want to not allow ourselves to feel othered. Our sources of energy are shifting from societal and external to what can only be called divine sources that are within us. This is your show. And here we arrive at the full moon in Pisces. This is going to occur on the 3rd. Our enlightenment, okay, let's talk about this chart here for a second. Because we have the full moon right here. We have the sun, and we also have the moon. We've already seen Mercury pass over Pisces. We have Neptune and Saturn actually starting to move. Saturn is actually in the 2nd degree of Aries by now, whereas Neptune is still in the 1st. Remember, Saturn is going to move faster. Saturn has like a 23-year cycle to move through the entire zodiac. So what we have here is we've got the sun and the moon. Now, you can see the square is with dark moon Lilith up here. This is going to be very telling. There's something there that's not stated. There's something there that we're feeling. There's something there that we're being drawn towards, but we don't quite know what it is, because that's the essence of Pisces, right? That Pisces essence is making this go, oh my goodness, this is crazy, right? And we can see now dark moon, the black moon Lilith has moved into a sextile with Pluto, and Pluto is sextile with Saturn and Neptune, which in turn is sextile with Uranus. So we have this large grouping here, this position here, from Black Moon Lilith all the way to Uranus is a cradle. And this is what's holding us, okay? There's something there. There's a hand that's rocking the cradle. And that hand that's rocking the cradle is actually in Virgo. All right, because that's what's opposite almost this entire thing. So what happens when the cradle falls? Does it fall into Virgo, or does it fall into Pisces where it's at? Well, we can take that Pisces intuition and apply it to the Virgo detail and logic, and this is how we solve the conundrum that's being presented by Black Moon Lilith. What is it that we want? What is it we desire? What kind of freedom do we need to accomplish? It's not for this season to figure that out, but it's coming. And one hint that we do have is that it's right here in the Virgo season. You can see that. And you can also see where the sun is making an aspect with Jupiter. So we've got a Cancer overtone in there as well. So we've got Cancer and Virgo. Very, very important points. And then we're going to see a shift as the nodes start to shift between Aquarius and Leo. And that makes this part of this chart very, very important. Okay, so our inner vibration. Now, let's talk about this. The moon in Virgo is sifting through the data and concludes that, you know what? Our enlightenment in Aries is still ongoing thanks to that eclipse. And it's going to be ongoing until the next set of eclipses that's going to occur 6 months down the road. Now, because that's how long those last in my astrology and in my experience. Now, this isn't a dual track because the natural polarity has yet to shift. In other words, those nodes haven't shifted yet. We've got it straddling two kind of signs. So that polarity is where you see the sun and the moon opposite each other, right? That's that polarity. But whereas that eclipse was in Aquarius, the polarity, the polar opposite of Aquarius is Leo, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about polarity. Now, that polarity is not natural, so it hasn't shifted. This isn't about loud, brash statements. That would be a Leo thing, right? It's more of a tacit understanding that our vibrational level is what will ultimately burn brightly until it flickers and fades, and then we go into that brash instance. This astrology speaks of the permanence of this internal course of events. In other words, we need to assimilate this fully and be able to understand that this new way of understanding, this polarity, the split polarity between the sun being in Pisces and the moon being in Virgo, and that Aquarius Leo is shifting. All right. And as it shifts, we need to take the lesson that we learn, that karmic lesson, because this has to do with the nodes, and be able to internalize that and use that moving forward. Now, here's Venus sextile Uranus. This is kind of important, right? Now, just how serious is your commitment to yourself? Think about that. This underscores the importance of us being uniquely us. One of the lessons from the Aquarius season, right? Now, That was a huge theme last month, and we saw it play out on one of the biggest stages of the world. This is one of the things I was telling you about. Alyssa Leo. Now, she's a reflection of two major themes of this astrology, right? She was it's Neptune and Aries. It's that unique expressiveness of Mars and Aquarius, that action, right? That outward, that effusiveness, that idiosyncratic performance that she gave, that really had her individuality show through. Very Aquarian, right? Yet creative in a way that we haven't seen that before. That's that Neptune and Aries, bringing that forward, bringing that to the forefront. This is presaging that, okay? And this was through dance. Let's put it that way. It's a creative maneuver, right? Sure, there's a lot of discipline in Saturn, right? 4 o'clock in the morning at rinks, practicing countless repetitions, getting that routine down. However, those major themes are there, and it's basically here. There's a correlation of beauty as it relates to that unique expression. You can't argue that. You can translate this into endorsement deals for her, but what does this mean for you? Right? What does this teach us? What is this something that can happen? That discipline, that unique personality coming through, that expression that we hadn't seen before. That's where this is getting at. Now apply this to your situation and get ready to reap similar rewards. Now you can say that the astrology has seen this come, but I've been talking about this for a long time, right? And people that think this is going to, no, this is a different kind of a different way of manifesting our entire being and our interpretations and everything like that in a way that was both tangible, enjoyable, and that just changed that one aspect of the sport. Now, apply this to your situation. Just remember, the presence of Saturn with Neptune means that you've got a lot of 4 in the morning rink time. If your skating is your thing. If not, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The next chart is actually the entire theme comes into focus with the Sun trine Jupiter. And so now on the 5th of March, we're going to have the Sun trine Jupiter. And this is going to be very interesting because now this takes those Venusian themes that we had before where we were putting that into practice, and it makes it something tangible. It makes it ours. It makes us feel it, right? And we can feel it because that influence of Jupiter is going to be so intense because Jupiter is beginning to slow down. And as planets slow down, as they approach the end of a retrograde or beginning of a retrograde, they have a bigger outsized kind of influence because they're not moving so quickly. We like to call that a little bit of emphasis. Now, if you think about this, Jupiter loves being in Cancer. Why? Why does Jupiter love being in Cancer? Well, in a way, it's the revenge of the goddess. A lot of people tell you astrology was written by guys for guys, and the women, female planets and the expressions and stuff like that are diminished. But yet, the sky father, Jupiter, the most important planet, the greater benefic, apart from the sun and moon, right, is actually comfortable in the house of the moon, in the female house. Now, why is that? Well, look, it expands the most positive qualities of Jupiter, like that expansive and optimism and everything like that, in a life-affirming manner, nurturing, caring. It's protective, it's emotional well-being, and it's our sense of safety that's enhanced. And they're all enhanced by this placement of Jupiter being exalted in Cancer. Now, the sun represents us, where we're at right now, right? So this is where we take this Pisces stuff a little bit more seriously, and we can feel the empathy. We can feel where it is that Jupiter wants to be leading us. And this gives us a very Jupiterian feel, optimistic, hopeful. And that's where you should really be placing yourself. This retrograde season isn't about, oh my God, the car's not going to work. Oh, I need a new computer and it's not going to be right. It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. What really matters is how you're feeling, how you're protected, and what it is that you're doing to enhance your life in an enjoyable way, in a Venus way, in a Venusian way, in a Cancerian way, in the good home, the good life, the good family, everything like that. And also in a way that nourishes us spiritually. That's that Pisces thing. The Sun in Pisces trine Jupiter is all the reassurance that we need. Intuitively, this is the right direction. Pisces season, we feel it. Intuitively, right direction. And it's going to lead us into the Leo season, themes of fame and renown. That's where Jupiter is heading, right? But right now, we're just loving this. We're just wrapped up in that cradle, right? That cradle that I showed you on the chart. We're in that cradle and we're loving it. Soon it's going to be out there. And when it's out there, that's when we're going to have to do our best to shine and perform. Now, our fortune is very much tied to this exploration that we're on, and where Mercury's going in the retrograde, because Mercury's gonna come back to this point too. You can see where Mercury's almost where the Sun is at on the chart, so you can actually see that over there and be like, oh, okay, so we're heading into that region. That's a very cool thing, right? What will happen is it's going to highlight areas that we still need to understand and continue to deepen that understanding of this part of the cycle. And this is where we're really getting into it. We're getting into some nuts and bolts. Look at Venus, because this is where things are going to get a bit wild, okay? Because Venus is getting ready to go into Aries right there. You see her? She's right at the end. She's right at the tail end. So let's talk about this. Here we have Venus entering Aries. Now, she's immediately conjunct Neptune, just about, and then she's conjunct Saturn. Things are going to begin to heat up. Arts, passion, our powers of attraction, they're going to begin to smolder, right? As things start to get a little bit more intense. Creativity, our personal workload, and even our side hustles are going to be more demanding of our attention. But guess what? We're going to be able to pay attention to that, because Aries energy, that takes it and makes it so we can share the love more freely. The rewards, they're considerable. So keep your vibration elevated and stay innovative and true to yourself. That's really where the lessons are coming from. Mercury is still going backwards, but now we have Venus in Aries. Stuff's going to heat up, right? That attraction, that everything. Before we were just in love. Now we're bringing it to us. It's coming to us. It's emanating from us in a much stronger way. All right, so by the 9th of March, we actually end up with the Mercury trine Jupiter. This is twice. This is the second time. This originally happened on the 17th of February. I spoke about a karmic shift and a generational feeling that this shift may have us experience. Although Mercury was in Pisces, the Sun was in Aquarius at this time, and it made the trine feel a bit challenging. It did. It made it feel like, not everybody likes a vague Mercury. Think about it. Folks here should feel a bit more attuned to more mystical and, the more mystical. And Aquarius is actually the sign of astrology. So there's a level of discomfort that shouldn't have applied here at all, but it did. And, why it did? Look, our knowledge can continue expanding, and we should afford ourselves more opportunities to do exactly that, expanding, right? Making the most of what we're doing, even with Mercury retrograde. Technology, even with Mercury retrograde. Okay, it provides us with the fuel necessary to inspire and nurture us both intellectually and spiritually. Don't focus on just one aspect, because that will get you wrong. It's the entire path you are on. That uniting that we talked about earlier. That's right, when Mercury and Venus were conjunct, that unification of it. We went from that dual path to a single path that unites both the spiritual and the material. So now that you know just how important this past year, now that you know this, your last year was very important in your development, and now we're just going to be going forward with it. Just how important was it? This important. It comes down to this aspect of the Sun trine Jupiter, and as Jupiter starts to move out of that, that's the areas we'll be expanding in, and as we expand, we grow. Now, by the 10th, we've got Venus sextile Pluto, and this causes some fireworks. Venus is in Aries. So, helping each other out, right? Energy, passion, just going for it, right? We're going to see protests and stuff like that start to increase. Warmer weather, right? Why not? I mean, that's a no-brainer. Also, we're going to see a move towards more social justice. We're going to see a move towards more passionate displays of what it is that we're doing artistically. Things are going to get a bit more flamboyant. Things will get a bit more, out there. Mercury is the only planet that is retrograde because Jupiter will be direct. That's right. Jupiter is direct. You can see the little arrow over here pointing. There is no R there at all. So what do we have? We have, Venus sextile Pluto. We have Jupiter direct. Now, this chart looks very funny because you see a couple big trines on it too, right? Well, that's because this is for a particular time. We don't pay attention to the clock faces on the when we're doing what's called mundane astrology, even for ourselves, right? If we were doing it for the world, certain times and stuff like that, or certain events, like if this were an orrery chart, we would pay attention to where that clock face is at. But right now we don't, because we're really mostly interested in the aspects of the planets and their relationship to each other. And then in turn, you can take your chart and see where that relates to the relationships to you. And you can fine tune and dial this in. The general flow and feel, the lunar feel of everything that we tend to give, that's really cool. And that gives the daily astrology something to really sink into, because there are some experiences that we feel collectively, crappy days, good days. People feel that, and that's communally shared. So we may not be terribly satisfied in limited roles, but you know what? This is a big shift because we have Venus sextile and we have that Jupiter direct. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're moving forward, but we're moving forward in kind of a limited way with that retrograde. It's almost like we're preparing ourselves intuitively to be dominant in certain areas as it relates to Pisces and Cancer. We may be thinking we need more of the initial experiences. Now, the question is, how do we attain this? Mars conjunct Mercury. Mercury conjunct Mars. Okay, this is the how. This is a very complicated but potent aspect. Energy in our fantasies? Well, let's look at this here. So this is the second time that they're conjunct right here in Pisces. So let's talk about this. Now, the first time around occurred in Capricorn and was almost too intense for the progressive energies in Aquarius. That's right, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, just like Jupiter's exalted in Cancer. This was huge. Now, Mars exalted in Capricorn was on a mission to make sure we didn't forget to execute as the promise that we had earlier that we were working on, right? So we had the promise earlier when the sun was in Cancer of this new, not necessarily beginning, but we had this new shift in our timeline that we were going to pursue and begin following. For me, it was quite literal. For you, I'm not quite sure, but most everybody felt something like this as the year went along, as we dared to step up and do different things, assume different roles in our 3D reality. Now, the 5D reality of everything was it just made us more available to be able to get expansive and go out and do other things, such as more work, more be a little bit more generous towards our loved ones and stuff like that. Now, Mars exalted in Capricorn was on that mission to make sure that we didn't forget to do that. Things were merely a glimmer then. But now we have Mercury a second time. Planets sometimes carry the energy of the last aspect to the new aspects. Mars and Jupiter are both drinking from the same cup that Mercury in Pisces presents them with, kissed by Venus before she entered the realm of Aries. All right, so the realm of Mars, Aries. This is Pisces season, and it indicates that this Cancer season will once again be a springboard for further development. This Pisces season, that's what that means. This Pisces season will once again be this Pisces season indicates that the Cancer season that's coming up will be a springboard into further development. Not everything is go, go, go. We had a point to make, and now the universe is checked out and made us wait for it. That's right. We made our point. Now you got to wait for it. You got to do the work. Saturn, do the work. Now, what we have reasons just as the universe has reasons. Now your actions have a deeper meaning, greater context, and will ultimately make much more sense to you. Okay, if you're asked to do something and it aligns with your vibration, just do it, okay? Intuitive. That's what we're going to do. Don't make it neat. Keep it messy. Leave them wanting more. And that is all I have for you. I can't believe I made it through that. Please take the time to like the video, smash the buttons, do all the nice things, right? I appreciate and love every single one of you. This is probably going to be broken down into 2 or 3 parts on TikTok. It'll be in its entirety on YouTube, and you'll be able to read a blog about it, and I will have it put on the podcast as well, because it's going to run long. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. Leave me comments, please. If you agree with what the stuff I'm saying, then please let me know. If you're experiencing some of the similar things, if you've heard different and you want some clarification, I will provide that to you as well. I answer all of my comments, so please leave them below. Peace, love. I hope you get everything that you're working towards. Happy astrocatting.